Good morning. I'm Mary Jo Urban and I'm our service leader today. I welcome all of you. I'm so happy to see your faces on this morning. Here we have come into this space, quieter now, with our readiness, hushed voices, hoping and trusting for so many things, for connection, for communion, for inspiration, for information, for healing, and for wholeness, for words, for music, for celebration, and for consolation. Here we have come into this space, bringing all of who we are, so let us be willing, however we are changed. I welcome all of you, and just as a reminder that we covenant and promote our principles grounded in the humanistic teachings of the world's religions. Our spirituality draws from both scripture and science, from nature and from philosophy, from personal experience and ancient tradition. If you need to get to know us a little better, may I suggest the uua.org website. Lots and lots of wonderful things going on there. I welcome this morning Reverend Karon Sandberg, a hospice chaplain for close to 10 years. She was ordained by the Fox Valley UU Fellowship and has served them as a community minister. And we are thrilled to have her with us this morning. Thank you so much, Karon, for joining us. Our October theme from the UUA is deep listening, and the theme of empathy and offering empathy during these difficult times seems to fit beautifully with that. Our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, I think fits into today's service. So welcome. Do we have any announcements today? And if you do, just put your hand up and unmute yourself. Linda. Unmute, Linda.
I just want to say not only the UUA website, but our very own website is absolutely outstanding. I hope you'll take a little time to look there if you have not before. 3 cheers for Kim Everett.
Yippee.
Thank you, Linda, for that reminder. Any other announcements on this day?
I have an announcement. On the 25th of October, we will be celebrating our Honoring the Saints Day, and our superpower point of, let's say, person who does all this for us, Ginny Finnell, is again willing to do that. So if you are planning to celebrate or to honor one of your saints, please send a photo and any words that you would like to Ginny Finnell as soon as possible. That's on October 25th. We'll be celebrating and honoring our forebears, our saints, anybody who has passed away in the last year or so. So October 25th, send your information, photos, and little illustration, anything you want to Ginny Finnell.
Thanks, Kathy. Other announcements today? Erica?
Hi, board meeting for this coming Tuesday is being rescheduled. I will let everybody know what date the board meeting will be. And if you are interested in attending or have an issue for the board, just let me know, and we'll send you an invitation. Thank you.
If there are no more announcements this morning, we'll continue with our chalice lighting. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. By Albert Schweitzer. And our opening words this morning come from our book that some of us studied together, Sources of Our Faith, and it is a reading by Robert Lawrence Smith.
Let your life speak. Have the patience to be silent and listen for the truth. Then have the courage to let the best that is in you direct your actions. Recognize that your true identity is nothing more or less than the way in which you conduct your public and private affairs. The way in which, for good or ill, you let your life speak.
Our opening hymn today is from our hymnal. It's number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can hear from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." I had a, yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
At this time, I again welcome Reverend Karon Sandberg. In times of stress and hardship, as we've been going through recently, we struggle sometimes with how to help people that we love. How can we be a support when sometimes there's not even words or actions that can help comfort this person that we love? Karon mentioned that she has grown to be in awe of the amazing power of empathy. So we welcome you, Karon, and we look forward to what you can share with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Mary Jo. It's a delight to be with you this morning. I'm hoping, as I was saying earlier, that maybe next summer we can actually see each other face to face. Lorraine was a feisty, loving, and giving woman that I so adored. She was one of those people who just made you feel better for having been with her. She was 30 years older than me, and I often told her that I wanted to be her when I grew up. She loved fully, she loved fiercely. She was a strong, independent woman. She had a big family with 8 children who visited her quite a bit, and they all trusted her advice and they counted on her love and friendship throughout the years. During our visits, she began to mention her granddaughter, Cindy, quite a bit. Cindy had recently divorced her husband. I never got all the details why, but in this leaving, Cindy had begun to change a bit. She was discovering new things about herself that brought her joy. She even had started to date again. Of course, divorce is never easy, and there were 2 young children that were caught in the middle of divided parents. Lorraine shared with me that she really needed to sit down with her granddaughter and set her straight on all of this. She wanted to caution her and to remind her of her duties as a mother. Lorraine worried continuously about these great grandkids who now in her estimation were coming from a broken home. Time and time again, Lorraine would tell me how she was working hard to get Cindy to come over for a visit. Cindy seemed to dodge these invitations. Perhaps she was aware of their hidden offering. As Lorraine's health began to decline, she felt more desperate to make this conversation happen. One day I wondered aloud with Lorraine, as you're getting closer to end of life, is this really how you want to be with Cindy right now? Telling her what to do, letting her know how disappointed you are in her. Silence held the room. After a few minutes, it was clear that this question opened up a truth for Lorraine. You see, Lorraine had divorced her husband. She knew the challenges and difficulties of raising children almost single-handedly during a time when divorce was a rarity. She recalled the shame she had felt. She recalled the rejection of friends and even some family. Finally, she spoke. No, she replied, no, that is not how I want to be. Weeks later, when we visited again, she told me she had seen Cindy and that they had had a wonderful visit. Instead of trying to fix Cindy's decision, Lorraine was able to sit next to Cindy in her sadness and in her loss of marriage. Lorraine listened with an open heart, as she had been in a similar space in her own life. Lorraine connected with remembrances of herself as a young single mother. Cindy was able to share her heart, and Lorraine was able to hear it and hold it with tenderness and love. There was no judgment. There was no fixing or solutions found in their time together. Instead, a sacred space was created in which these two women had a common truth. This is empathy. The worship theme for this month is deep listening. And let me say this, there is no deeper listening than to offer empathy to someone. Being able to offer and to receive empathy in times of trouble can help all of us see that we're not alone. And there are others around us who understand. I was a hospice chaplain for 10 years. And you'd think after all of my education and training and years of experience that I would have empathy down packed. But the truth is that empathy is difficult to grasp and unfold. Empathy means being comfortable with the uncomfortable. And while most of us, including myself, are not comfortable with the uncomfortable, let's be honest, it feels better to offer advice or do something when we're face to face with a loved one who is struggling. We often go to pat answers like everything must happen for a reason, or whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, or as we saw in the video, well, at least counselor and writer Shaz Khan says that these sayings actually offer no value to our loved one's feverish and wandering mind, and they offer absolutely no consolation to the aching heart. Because here's the thing, here's the honest truth. You and I, we're in no position to even begin to understand the lessons others will learn, nor can we lessen their pain along the way. But we can listen without being instructors, and we can empathize without being saviors. Let me say that again. We can listen without being instructors, and we can empathize without being saviors. My own heart lets out an enormous sigh of relief when I hear those words. A sigh of relief for me when I'm in need of empathy, but also for me when I'm offering empathy. Empathizing asks us to feel the struggle of others and then just to hold it. When our focus is to ease our loved one's suffering, that becomes a response based on our own ego. We want to fix it. We want to change it or help or stop the pain. But in doing that, when we think we are enlightened enough to correct someone else's journey, like Lorraine thought she should for her granddaughter, we miss the point and we miss the purpose of empathy. Dr. Brene Brown's beautiful video tells us the best thing we can really do is to admit to our loved one that we don't even know what to say right now, but that we're glad that we can be with them in their struggle. This seems so counterintuitive, to do nothing, but when offered with grace, empathy is a profound and holy gift during difficult times. A fellow chaplain told me that one of his most amazing days at work was a day when he said practically nothing at all. A large family had camped out in the waiting room of a hospital as a loved one was having a very serious and life-threatening surgery. There was nothing anyone could do to influence the outcome. Even the surgeon shared his doubts and concerns. As they waited, my friend got them coffee and fruit. He got blankets and magazines. He drew crayon pictures with the young children who were there with their parents. He listened as they shared their concerns and fears and tears, and he held their hands. and they waited. Finally, after 6 hours, the surgeon emerged from the OR. It had gone okay. There was still a lot to learn as the patient would be waking up and as healing began, but overall, the surgeon felt hopeful. The family fell on each other in tears of relief and joy. The chaplain helped them to pack up their stuff so they could go home and get some rest. The wife of the patient hugged him and told him what a difference his presence had made for all of them that day. My friend marveled at the fact that he really didn't do much at all. His words or actions didn't fix anything. He simply stayed with them in their discomfort. Being with someone in their discomfort, I wonder how all of us long for that when we are in our own discomfort. Because I know we often tend to isolate ourselves. We don't want to bother others. We don't want them to know how bad it really is. We often feel shame. But empathy is the antidote to shame. And in that letting go of shame, empathy fuels connection. I wondered about empathy and what kind of role it might play with those we love who struggle with depression and anxiety. How often have we said or have someone say to us, well, at least, or you should, trying so hard to fix the distress instead of just being quietly present or offering to really listen. Brene Brown says, to know pain is human. To need is human. Many of us are willing to extend a helping hand, but we're reluctant to reach out for help when we need it for ourselves. It's as if we've divided the world into those who offer help and those who need help. But what happens when the helpers need help? What happens when the ones who need help are drowning in despair? Brene Brown says the truth is we are both helper and in need. And need is the most beautiful and holy compact between humans that exists. To strengthen that compact, how powerful might it be if we just simply listen to one another? It feels like as a society, we've lost the art of really listening. We've become a society of folks who just like to tell. Our daily news feeds are the perfect example. Nowadays, it seems we face one another, thoughts and next words in hand, positioning our tongues to leap forward as soon as the other pauses to take a breath, waiting for a chance to jump in and say what we think. NPR host Celeste Headley says, when this happens, we become two people who are just shouting out random thoughts at one another. This isn't listening. So how do we change that? How can we listen with empathy? When someone's expressing pain to you, the first thing we need to do is listen fully, to put phones away, sit face to face, and be present in that moment. I'll tell you a little secret. Through the years, I've learned a magic word that people inevitably say when they want to tell you something important. People will often start their conversations or confessions with the word so. If someone starts a sentence with that word, drop whatever you're doing and give them your full attention as they are getting ready to share something important. This is especially true for teenagers, but I must confess, even most adults say it too. When I'm really listening, my whole body faces the person I'm with. I lean in towards them and focus my eyes on their eyes. Some folks say we should repeat back what we hear the person saying. But the truth is, there's no real reason to show that you're paying attention when in fact you actually are. The body naturally turns towards someone. Our eyes can't help but look at our loved ones. Deep listening requires setting aside of yourself and focusing on the other. And as they talk, and believe me, they will, just listen. Don't start thinking of the next thing to say, because that's usually what we do. Stephen Covey says that most of us don't listen with the intent to understand. We listen with the intent to reply. Listen and then wait. Wait for them to ask you for your input. And if they do not ask, don't offer it. Let me repeat that. Wait for them to ask for your input. And if they do not ask, do not offer it. Because here's the thing, most often than not, our deepest human desire is simply to be understood and to be heard. It's not to be told what we should have done or what went wrong or how things could have been different. True empathy allows others to express their reality, void of judgment and interruption. As a Unitarian hospice chaplain, I was very comfortable with folks of all walks of faith and even no faith at all. I championed for my patients who said they were spiritual but not religious, and I stood up for my patients who identified as atheists. My staff found this a little confusing at times. One of my nurses asked me once, what did I do when I was with patients who denied the existence of God? I paused. The you in me came to the fore, and I said, well, during this period of end of life, I'm lifting up issues like regrets and forgiveness and reconciliation with loved ones. We explore what gave them meaning in their lives. We look towards finding peace and celebrating love and grace. In my estimation, these are very holy aspects of anyone's life, whether they have a faith tradition or not. And she brushed it off by saying, oh, you mean secular things. I knew she had a very strong faith that supported her well, and I suspected the absence of talking about God at end of life seemed hard to imagine. So I asked her, is love, forgiveness, grace, and peace secular? If I was talking about these things in connection to God, you would not say so. For my non-religious patients, these issues are just as sacred and holy in their lives. Sacredness and holiness are things that give us meaning and connection, perhaps not to God, but certainly to something bigger than ourselves. When we're able to be present for one another in empathy, we open ourselves up to that holiness of that connection with another human, to something bigger than ourselves. All of us here today understand that sacred feeling of having been seen and really heard by someone. We walk away from our time together feeling better, feeling understood. Empathy opens us up to that holy moment of connection. As many of you know, aging has its challenges and its blessings. And as I've moved into my 60s, I've learned that if I share my vulnerability, my messiness, my brokenness, it's actually really freeing. In my youth, I spent too many years building a facade that led everyone into believing that I had it all together. It was exhausting and actually kept me separated from my friends and family at times when I really needed them. This facade did not allow me to invite them truly into my life. Now I find in sharing honestly about myself, I instantly build a bridge of understanding. Whenever I share my vulnerabilities, someone else will always say, yes, I know what you mean. We've all been in dark places. Right now, the entire world seems like it's a dark place, doesn't it? We're all hurting in a variety of ways, and it's hard to be in that dark place. Some of us wonder if our loved ones really knew us, really saw our deepest thoughts. Would they still be by our side? The Christian faith tells us that God loves us unconditionally, and I marvel at that concept. It sounds so lovely, and I know I've experienced it at times in my life, but it seems fleeting. The teacher Jesus shares how we too can embody unconditional love, and I think that's something I believe we're encouraged to strive for in our lives. The golden rule to love our neighbors as ourselves seems like an easy thing to say, but in all reality, it's not something that we do easily or naturally. I wonder if our challenge to fully offer empathy has anything to do with the difficulty of loving unconditionally. If I offer you empathy, I have to accept you just as you are, hot mess and all. That can be challenging as we are parents or with our family members, and that can feel uncomfortable. But like my story about Lorraine shared, her words of correction, of judgment, or guidance would only have caused more separation between her and her beloved granddaughter. When she sat with her granddaughter in understanding and acceptance, in that holiness of unconditional love, they found a state of grace. Empathy fuels connection. In opening up to empathy, we open ourselves up to that unconditional love. Empathy invites us to sit next to our beloved and feel what's inside their heart. Empathy opens us up to loving unconditionally with our beloveds who are lost in a dark place. And it does the same when empathy is offered to us. We're human, you and I. And getting lost in the darkness happens to each and every one of us at times. But what if instead of hiding those times from one another in shame, what if we used our own experiences of darkness as a doorway to light? As a doorway to understanding our beloveds when they're in those dark places. Seek that light with someone you trust if you're in need of it. Offer that light to those you love who may be struggling. For in that human offering, we find that sacred space of understanding. In empathy, let us listen. Deeply listen. Let us sit beside one another and physically and emotionally assure each other that no matter what, we'll stay. We'll be there in that discomfort. But when we offer this to one another, this is the holy gift of unconditional love. May it be so.
Thank you so much, Karen. That gave me personally a lot to think about. It's difficult not to try to be offering advice the minute someone shares with you, and to be able to do that deep listening is a human challenge. We do have a few extra minutes this morning. If there's anyone that would like to share a response to Karen's words, if so, just feel free to unmute.
From what I know, sometimes it's just hard for people to feel empathy. Like, say, autistic people sometimes have the thing to not feel empathy. So, like, sometimes they only have sympathy and or compassion, depending. So, I appreciate the focus that you put on empathy. It's just, it's not the only option, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. And as you speak of folks who may be on a spectrum of autism, absolutely, that's a challenging emotion for them. I used to be a special ed teacher before I went into ministry, and that's a challenge, absolutely. I believe there are compassion and sympathy are certainly good tools. I think for a lot of folks, empathy is a real challenge.
Carolyn?
Oh, do you have any advice for somebody like me who is sensitive, and when I share my darkness with somebody, I take offense if they try and fix me?
And that, I think, is the challenge, because the majority of us don't offer empathy, and we're really just looking to be held, you know, in that darkness. You know, like the video was showing us, we're just really looking to be held and to have someone sit there with us. I can't say I blame you for feeling resentful about that. Maybe one of the things we need to do when we are in need of empathy is to draw that boundary and say, I'm not looking for a fix here. I'm not looking for you to solve this for me. I'm just looking to be heard and for you to be here with me in this darkness. And if you draw that boundary, it, you know, lets them know what they're looking for. And I think most of us in it, you know, when we're offering those kind of things to fix, or you should do that, or, you know, at least this or that, you're looking to do something. And now you've given them a little roadmap about what you really need. You know, we're not mind readers. I've learned in my 35 years of marriage that sometimes I have to tell my husband exactly what I want him to do. He's not a mind reader. And I don't think we need to be afraid of doing that, especially with people who are in your inner circle, you know, and you know who those people are.
I have something that happened during our talk here, during what you've shared, because when we talk about hurting, and when we hurt, when our loved ones hurt, I think the act of trying to fix it is, we want to fix the hurt. We don't want the hurt to continue, you know, with ourselves or with our family, friends, whatever. And of late, it's a struggle, but I'm trying very hard to replace the words fix it with resolve. And the resolve doesn't have to move the needle, not 1 inch, just a resolution to a place of peace, just being with each other. And it's so hard. So thank you for shining some light on possibilities. Thank you.
You're welcome. It is hard. It is the hardest thing. And if any of you are parents, or, you know, even just have good friends and family, you want to fix it so bad. And, you know, there's one thing when you have little children, there are things you can fix. But my children are full-fledged adults now, and I can just sit and nod and listen. And if they ask me for advice, then I will offer it. But if not, even if I don't think it's the best thing on the planet, I'm sure my parents thought I had lost my mind half the time. So it is what it is.
Dick.
When Lori mentioned that we're in the season of St. Francis, this is going to sound a little strange, but you're all old enough to remember Fulton Sheen. And we used to, being brought up in a Catholic family, my mom used to make us watch Fulton Sheen on TV. I think it was a Sunday night. And he talked about empathy in terms of sharing joy. And so often when we empathize, it's with people in distress or people that are in uncomfortable situations. And he took the premise that we should all walk in the sandals of St. Francis and empathize with all the joy in the world and all the joy in nature around us. And that premise being that if we are so into the empathy of joy, our sympathy becomes a symphony of happiness and helps us cope with the distressing times. Lori just made me think of that from, God, that must be 70 ago plus.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great idea. And I can imagine looking at all your faces that, you know, getting out in nature or being with, you know, your loved one is that way of celebrating that joy that we do have. You know, the world seems like it's falling down around our ears right now. And I can only make sense of myself and the world if I go out in nature right now. So I've been kayaking up a storm, and I've been hiking at state parks, and it reminds me that in nature, the world is not upside down. In nature, the world is not, you know, falling apart. I mean, yes, we have environmental issues, but there's a calmness and there's a peacefulness out there that just restores my soul. And when you talked about, you know, celebrating the joy of empathy, I thought, oh yeah, that's what I get when I'm in nature. So I hope you all have something like that you can turn to, whether it's reading great books or, you know, being with loved ones or friends that you can have in your little pod, I guess. But please, please go to those things. We need that now more than ever.
Thank you, Karen. That was food for thought. And
Well, thank you.
Just really, really appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you. I look forward to joining you again.
I can't wait. Our closing hymn today, Dick and I have gone to see Carrie Newcomer a few times. She is an incredible artist. And I happened to find this song, Room at the Table. So please enjoy.
Let our hearts not be hardened to those living on the margins. There is a room at the table for everyone. This is where it all begins. This is how we gather in. There is room at the table for everyone. Too long we have wandered, burdened and undone, but there is room at the table for everyone. Let us sing the new world in. This is how it all begins. There is room at the table for everyone. There is room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. There is enough if we share. Come on, call our big chair. There is room at the table for everyone. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, there is room at the table for everyone. Here and now we can be the beloved community. There is room at the table for everyone. There is room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. There is enough if we share. Come on, pull up a chair. There is room at the table for everyone. Room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. If we share, come on, call up a chair. There is room at the table for everyone. Let our hearts not be hardened to the living on the margins. There is room at the table for everyone. This is how we gather in for everyone. Everyone.
closing words for today are by David Hicks McPherson. To wish for compassion, to pray for courage, to experience doubt, to bear sorrow, to strive for sureness. All these are qualities for which each of us should be grateful. But to feel a genuine fellowship for the whole human family, to act so that our empathy is evident wherever we go, that is the object. And that is the lifelong goal.